Hello. Hello again. This is gonna be an English live this time. I'm gonna do an English live talking about the letter of Willie Lynch. For those of you who don't know, or even if you already know, we're just gonna be discussing the details of the letter. I personally have just recently, I knew of the letter for a long time, but I never took the time to actually read it. And being that I'm doing this work, I decided to just look into it. And I said, oh, well, let me just go and take a look at the letter. And I started reading it, and I realized, I realized the letter was a lot more detailed and a lot more profound than I thought. I didn't realize as I was reading it, I didn't realize the letter had so much to do with me per se. I figured I'm not in slavery anymore per se. I figured, well, this letter could possibly written in 1712, being read to slave masters in Virginia, couldn't possibly have something to do with me today into 2021. Well, to my disbelief, to my surprise, this letter pretty much almost described me to a T in it. I saw me in the letter, and I saw my community. I saw we as a people. I saw how that's us. He's describing us, who we are today. So if you don't know, Willie Lynch was an English slave owner who had plantation in the Caribbean, in the English Caribbean colonies. And in 1712, he was invited in Virginia, in the United States, to speak to other slave owners who were battling issues with their slaves. Issues like rebellion. Issues where slaves were just not adhering to principles of slavery. And Willie Lynch came out to Virginia, and he told them basically that he had a foolproof method that really could work and that could actually solve all their problems. So he rallied up everybody. So that was what the whole meeting was about. And, he was talking about a document that he actually wrote, and the document is How to Make a Slave. And so he went into detail explaining to the other slave owners about his method and that how it was foolproof. And he said he guaranteed his method to work for at least a minimum of 300 years and up to 1,000 years, but definitely up to 300 years. But he told them that basically he used the metaphor of horse breeding and horse, how you break a horse. He said that a Negro and a horse, they were both the same thing. And he said both a Negro and a horse was not good to the economy of slavery because they both, in their natural state, they want freedom. It's in their natural state to be free, to be sort of like savage, to be like natural and uncivilized. And then he said both the horse and the Negro have to be broken down in order to be submissive and in order to be a good slave. And he said he came up with how to do just that. First, he talked about how in like I said, in a natural state, they're just not good for the economy. And he said some of the principles in his method was, number one, he said it's important that you turn certain principles you have in your mind, certain understanding. He said, for example, distrust is much more important than trust. For the Negro, he said, focus on distrust, not trust. And then he said envy and jealousy was much more important than respect and adulation. He said, once you start with those principles and once you start to indoctrinate the Negro, he said, especially the female Negro, he went on about and explained how the female Negro was the most important in the whole tribe. He said the female Negro, she's the one who's going to actually set the whole thing up. She said, first you need to get the female Negro. You need to make her become docile and submissive, just like you would with the female horse. He said with a female horse, you want the female horse to be so docile, so submissive before you can ride her. Basically, you want the female horse, to be eating out of your hand. That's when you know that the horse is really docile and ready for you to ride her. And he said you do the same thing with the female Negro, because the female Negro has very specific tendencies naturally in her. In her, she wants to protect her offspring. She wants to take care of her offspring. Those are natural abilities that all human beings have, but specifically the female Negro. So you want to break that. You want to change that, because those are not abilities that's going to help with slavery, taking care of offspring, making sure your lineage continue. That's not what we want in slavery. We want to break those natural abilities. And he said you start with, first of all, you start by breaking up the male Negro. You do a role reversal. You have to pitch the female Negro against the male Negro. You have to use all the differences among the slaves against them. He said you're gonna pitch one Negro against another Negro, the older Negro against the younger Negro, the female against the male, the light-skinned Negro against the dark-skinned Negro, the curly hair Negro against the straighter hair Negro. You're going to use all the differences. The intelligent Negro versus the not so intelligent Negro. Even in the plantation itself, the type of work that they do, and you're going to pitch one against another. You're going to use any classification you can to pitch them once against the other. And you're going to do it vice versa. And he said with the female Negro, in order for you to have that, you're going to rally up the female Negro, all the Negroes, but specifically the female Negro, and the young infant black Negro. And you're going to have them sit down, rally up together. He said, and you're going to pick the most resistant, the Negro that's the most rebellious, the one who thinks he's all that. You're going to take that Negro, and you're going to take two horses, and you're going to position them in opposite direction, the horses. He said, and you're going to take the Negro, you're going to tie each of his leg to one of those horses, opposite side. He said, and you're going to set that Negro on fire, and then you're going to whip those horses, and you're going to let them run opposite direction until literally they taken this Negro apart. And this is in front of the female Negro, and this is in front of the infant Negro. He said it's important for them to watch that, for the female Negro to see that, because she's gonna go frozen. She's gonna become psychologically frozen, and she's gonna go into shock. And she said, and from that, she's going to decide quickly that she can no longer depend on that Negro psychologically. He's no longer her protector. And she's going to become independent psychologically from that experience. And because of that, she's going to lose her natural abilities, the natural tendency that she had to protect her offspring. She's going to lose those abilities. And she's going to also, from that moment on, she's going to raise her offspring to be like that Negro you just broke. She's going to break her male offspring psychologically. She's going to break them so that they become weak. She wants them to be weak because she thinks that's the only way they can survive. So what happens to that male Negro with those two horses don't happen to her offspring. So she's naturally going to do that. And he said with the female Negroes, with the female offspring, she's going to raise her female offspring to be very independent psychologically and not to depend on a male Negro since there are none around anyway. So he said, once you start this role reversal, what happens basically is for generations to come, it's just going to naturally happen. He said, but you're going to continue. You're going to take Those two, you're going to take two Negroes and you're going to breed them with two female Negroes. He said, just like you do with the horses. He said, because Negroes and horses are tied together, back assward. That's what he said. His exact word. Go read the letter. He said, you're going to take two male Negroes and you're going to breed them with two female Negroes. He said, and when those baby Negroes are born, exactly what I just described is what's going to happen. One is going to have a male, one is going to have a female, and they're going to raise the male, just like I just told you, to become weak psychologically, and the female Negro to become very independent psychologically. He said, those two offspring, you're going to continue that cycle with other Negroes. You're going to continue that cycle. You're going to breed them again and again. He said, and eventually you're going to have a generation of Negroes, literally, who are ass backwards, meaning they don't know where they're going. They have no idea where they are going. All they know is how to be slaves. They can't think for themselves. They just like horses. They just, not even horses, he said. They just like asses. They can't think for themselves. They will be very obedient. They will be very submissive. He said, that's when you, as a slave master, you can go to bed at night. You don't have to worry about any Negroes any rebellion. You don't have to worry about that anymore. And now we have an economy of slaves where we don't have to worry about it anymore, because no more rebellion, no more losing money, no more losing sleep, no more worrying about your family being attacked by Negroes who wants to be free. Because these new generation of Negroes, they don't want any freedom, because we've managed to sell them an illusions. The illusion is the continuation of emphasizing those differences that in the beginning that we use as control. You know, the light skin versus the darker skin, and then the tall one versus the short one, the intelligent versus not so intelligent, the female versus the male, you know, because he said at this point, the female is up front, psychologically, she's weak. You got a male behind her who's weak psychologically, who's can't serve her for any purpose, and you got the baby Negroes. They worthless at the same time. He said, you don't have to worry about anything anymore, and you're just going to continue the cycle, but you're going to continue to emphasize more and more those illusions. You're going to do that in how you prepare actually their functions of work in the colony. So you're going to continue to use those as differences as well. For example, you know, you're going to give one a supposed function in the colony. You're going to make him think that's a better function than the other one. And the other one, you're going to tell him the same things. This game is being played on both sides. So he's telling one guy, oh, you see, I let you do this work. This is because I think you're very intelligent and I think you can do it. That's why I let you do it. I think you're a very important slave. You're not like the other slaves. I really think you're very intelligent, Johnny. But then he's going to go to Thomas and say the same thing to Thomas about Johnny and pitch Johnny against Thomas. So now Johnny and Thomas in the same colony, but they don't trust one another. And he said, what happens in the end, the Negroes have no one else to trust because they don't trust each other, because we've already put them in this confusion. He said, but the only person they're gonna trust is us the slave masters. But that also means us, the white people, the white folks. And that's eventually what happens is that's why we have this desire, this automatic. It's an automatic thing to just think that anything that's white is better. When the white men say something, it's probably true. We believe that more than when it's someone like our complexion, someone that looks like us, that comes and says something. We question it. We said, where's the proof? I don't know. Where did you read that? Give me the proof. But then if the white man says something, or if he writes a book and puts something in there, you believe that. It's not just because you want to be like that. If you go and read the Willie Lynch letter, you'll see why you are like that. You are like that precisely because you were made to be like that. You were made to be that way because it's been going on for a long time. It's ingrained in you. And you were brought up that way. I mean, you and I, you all know that when our mothers and fathers would tell us things that sound like that same type of game that Willie Lynch was playing with the slave. Things like, well, it's not a bad idea, to marry white, to marry lighter. We have that proverb in our community that says, let's whiten up the blood. Whiten up the blood mean let's keep lightening it up. Sometimes you'll hear a mother says, well, those babies with those nappy-headed babies, it's hard to comb their hair. It's just easier. Why don't you just go with Johnny? It will be easier on all of us. Whether we do it for money sometimes we also do it because it's just going to be easier for the future generations. We've all had these conversations, or we've heard these conversations. Well, that's exactly what Willie Lynch was doing. That's what he set up. Those illusionary differences that he used, but he emphasized them. He made them look bigger than what they were. He made them look real. And so we now in our community, we function that way. We really believe that they are real. And this is why we use them as differences. We use them against one another. That's how we function as a people. And because we function from that perspective, our bigger problems, our bigger issues, we can never get to it because we stay right down here with those illusionary differences that he set up that kept us always, just like in the plantation, it kept us busy being slaves. It kept us busy doing the daily things that we were supposed to be doing rather than trying to be free, rather than rebel, rather than, coming up with, ideas on how do we get out of this. Well, it's the same thing. It serves the same function today. And he actually said eventually, after a while, it was going to be like a cycle of an orbit that's orbiting is in its own axis, that it's just going to keep going on forever unless the mind interrupts it, which the human mind can interrupt it at some point and said, something is not right here. Something is not right. What is this? He said, but don't worry. I have something for that too. He said, because the illusions that I've set up, even when the mind would question that, those illusions that I've set up, they'll be so strong that the Negro would rather believe some of the illusions rather than go back to question exactly what's going on. That's how perfect Willie Lynch had a method to control the slaves. And he said it would work for a minimum of 300 years or maybe even thousands. And no wonder why today, as a people, we are so confused. Our problems are so many and they are so complex. It's almost like, where do you start? Where would you start? We have problems in just about every area of our society on how we function. But that's because the way we are functioning is totally different than the way we used to function. It's backwards from what we known naturally, from what we were prior to this trauma that we went through called slavery. So I can see what you guys are saying. It's a seed of obedience. That's a nice word, obedience. I don't like that word. Obedience. Hades spirit. It's still working. That's right. It's going to work. It's always going to continue to work unless we actually, like you said, we question it and then we take steps to turn back, to go the other way. Otherwise, it's like being on a train that's on the track. If the train on tracks, it's going to go the route that it's set to go. It's not going to go anywhere else. So we would have to do something for that to stop. Change your mindset at the collective level, right? And to change your mindset at the collective level, first you have to kind of you have to acknowledge that we have this understanding, each one of us, that we want to perform at an individual level, that we actually like it, we prefer it, and we think that's the only one that can work. And one of the reasons why we think that way, because that's the one that brings us success, for example. If I want to be successful, like in Haiti, the school, when you think about it, the school, they set us to fail. They set us to fail because you can only succeed, you can only be successful in the school in Haiti if you compete with the other one and you don't help the other one. And you want the other one to fail. And that's when you now is successful. So when you look at it, it's really a method for you to fail because you are successful only by yourself. How is that going to help a society? And that's why in that society, people, after they are successful, they continue with that same mindset. It doesn't stop at the school. It continues as a mindset, even in families, even in your own family and in the society. So that's why that's why you see, for example, Haitians, not just Haitians, but Black people in general, they can come in another society, like they can come to the United States, they can go to Germany and Europe or wherever, and they can do great things and they can be very successful and they can help those societies because that's how they are brought up. That's how they prepared them. They prepared them exactly to help other nations, other societies, but not their own. Because their own, it's always going to be self-destructive because there's an element of competitions that is so high. It's more important as an individual for them to be successful as individuals rather than as a group, as a collective. It has to start in each family. It has to start in each family because this is how a nation is built. It's a family, then a community, right? Then you have a nation, several communities. That's what makes a nation. So it has to start in the family. Families, when you're raising your children now, you have to ask yourself those questions. You have to look at those ways that you are right now. Look at who you are right now and ask yourself, is that working for you? Some of these things that your family passed down to you, those are generational traumas, like someone just mentioned. You have to ask yourself, some of the things they did because they didn't know. But if you know now, should you continue to do it? Even if it's something that seems to be that it's going to benefit you. You have to challenge yourself. My daughter just came. You have to challenge yourself and ask yourself, in the long run, how many generations is that going to serve in the long run? And you'll notice it's not going to serve many. It's the same cycle that's just regenerating itself, that's renewing itself. And once you're a part of that, you are a part of the problem. Destroys families, messed up families dynamic. Yeah. I mean, we are pretty messed up people. Very, very messed up people. And the first part is to admit that. Hi, Julie. The first thing is to admit that we are messed up people. There's nothing wrong about realizing that you are messed up because that's the first step in you figuring out what you could do from there. But as long as we continue to lie to ourselves, like sometimes we just lie to ourselves, and that's part of the illusion of Willie Lynch. He knew that this would have been the response. He said, no, they'll just lie to themselves and says, well, I'm good anyway. It doesn't bother me. This is why in our communities, when something happened, like right now in Haiti, you have the gang problems that's going on. But people says, oh, well, it's not my neighborhood, that just same thing here too. You pass by the ghetto, well, I don't live there, so I feel bad for those people, but I don't live there. But you never realize that, maybe your community could be the ghetto next, or something from the ghetto, something happening in the ghetto could affect your community or could affect you, even though they seem to be two worlds apart. All of those are illusions that sometimes we tell ourselves so we don't get involved, so we don't have to change, so we don't have to look at ourselves and make the change that we need to make, because at the present moment, it looks like it's benefiting us. And so why would I give up this benefit just for some future gains that I'm not even going to be here to actually benefit from? Those mindsets are actually mindsets that Willie Lynch had set up as illusions that would benefit you in the moment so that you don't take any action collectively, and you don't take any action that would make a much bigger impact, like a rebellion. But you're just happy that, well, it wasn't me that they burned today. It wasn't me that got whipped today. And you think and say, well, I just have to learn from this lesson. What did he do today to get whipped? Or what did he do today to get burned? Or why did he have... You heard people sometimes, even in the movie Harriet Tubman, but I knew it happened too, and some of the slaves says, why did he go? Why did he even try to, get away? Because they found him. If they didn't find him, that would be fine. But when they found him, why did he try to get away? Because that then makes that person, instead of collectively enter this phenomenon to say, we need to do away with this. We need to find a way to get out of this thing that's causing us all of this hardships. They said, well, if he hadn't gone, we wouldn't be having this problem. So maybe, I'm not going to try to get away. I'm not going to do what he did so I don't get whipped myself. We still do that today because we're still functioning from a mindset of individuals versus the collective. The collective requires that you become vulnerable. You become one, even if you're not hurt, even if you're not involved, even if it doesn't seem to affect you at the moment, but you enter the space where it involves the others to take part in their pain, to take part as a collective, just like you would do in a funeral. You haven't lost anyone, but you join the bereaved so you can mourn with them. And this is what Willie Lynch had managed to break, those ties that we had prior to slavery as a society. He said if you can pitch one against the other, the black man against the black woman, have the role reversal, you do that with just about all the differences, you just make a complete mess where at some point they weren't going to know who they are. They're not even going to remember who they were. They're not going to know how to get back to who they were before, because they're going to be so confused, and they're going to have access to bits and bits of illusions and what seems to be, well, this will do for now. This will do for now type of solutions. But in the long run, they don't mean anything because they're not going to solve the real problem that they have. It's not going to get to the root of what's really going on. And as a people, they are like in a constant cycle of orbiting a cycle, and it's just continued. It just goes and goes and goes, but nothing really is changing. Nothing is really changing. Time to find Lynch current relatives. Someone asked that earlier, and guess what? You know about this. Those people, everything that they've done, Willie Lynch, of course, it's probably right under our noses. Not just his relatives, but, his deeds. It's right under our noses. Everything is right under our noses. Those things haven't gone anywhere. Those people haven't gone anywhere. Those systems haven't actually disappeared. They are here. They have just renewed into a different form. And they're right here. They haven't gone anywhere. And that is why issues like, for example, when I read on Google that says there's a myth that, the Willie Lynch letter is not even really real. It's a myth. No one knows for sure if he wrote it. They even go as far as saying the word that he used in the letter, those words back in 1712, those words weren't the type of words that were being, the type of vocabularies that were being used. In other words, that's another assault on you again, because it's creating another illusion. It's forcing you now for you to question your reality. But let's just say, even if the letter is not true, but if you look at the practices of slave in the colonies between slave masters and the slaves, some of the practices, burning people alive, how they would gather all the slaves together when they were going to do something with one slave in order for intimidation. everything that's in the letter, that was used. So the question is, was it written or was it not written? But it was certainly used. Those practices were used. So, but they still question. They make you question yourself. They say, "Oh well, we're not sure. It's a myth. Is the letter was true? We're not sure it's true." So again, that's just to make you question your own reality. So each time we even at our healing period, we're trying to heal ourselves, or we're trying to get to the truth so we can get to understanding who we are. Even that, they're not allowing us to have access to. Even that, they make you question. And it's easily for you to question it, because whose world are you in? You're in their world. So it's easy for you to question your reality because you're not in your own reality. So when you go read the letter on Google, it says, yeah, you'll find some pages where it's talk about that it's not real, it's a fake letter, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think so. I think it's real. My shock was how he used the horse, breaking down the horse as a metaphor. He said a nigger and a horse are tied. You tie them together. That's how you do it. So exactly what you do to a horse, that's what you do to a nigger. And that will give you the same result, because he said both of them were no good for the economy, both a Negro and a horse, because both in their natural states, they want freedom. And that's not good for business. So we have to indoctrinate the Negro, just like we do with the horse, so that they can become good slaves and they can be good for the economy. It's the same laws, that the same constitution that was written in slavery days we're still under. Yes. Right, exactly. And then people, they expect to get different results. They expect to have justice. They expect for things like George Floyd. When George Floyd happened, 9 minutes, everybody thinks something has to happen. Well, only one thing happened. 2 or 3 people went to jail. That's about it. That's to me, I mean, that's all. But you probably expected something much more was going to happen, like some type of something, some laws or something that was going to make sure this never happened again. Nothing really happened that's going to ensure that never happens again, I don't think. Just like nothing happened to that guy who went to the church and killed the 9 people. Nothing happened that's going to ensure that will never happen again. Nothing happened up until now, even for, what's the guy name that they had killed? What's his name? The little boy, 14-year-old, disfigured him, Emmett Till. Nothing happened even with what happened with Emmett Till to make sure this never happens again. Trayvon Martin, nothing really. If you go really look at it, nothing happened. Those things can happen again and again, and they'll continue to happen again and again. And all we keep asking is for justice. But justice from whom? From what? How? In what system? The system is meant to work exactly the way it's working. And people say, well, what can we do about it? Well, I tell you, if each one of us teach our sons and daughters about this letter that I just read, and start to teach them who they really are, where they come from, who they were as a people, where they come from, who those people were, and what they represented. If we were each doing that as a family, eventually we can change our situation. It's not going to be overnight, but it can be something that we start working on. And one day it will bring fruit. But certainly what we do know is that the way we are going now, it's certainly not going to get any better. And this world has become it's more illusions than anything else. Like, we have no problem, we Black people, we have no problem sitting down and watching reality TV for 24 hours and getting deeper and deeper and sinking deeper and deeper into their stuff. And what is that? When you think of reality TV, and you see it's people who have literally nothing to complain about. This is people, their lives are so put together so well. They don't have any problems. They don't have any injustices per se that they need to worry about. They can sleep at night, but then they come up with an issue that they can complain about. They come up with something and then they want to make it real, but it's not real. But they want to do it to the point where they want other people to come on and join them to in their misery about something that's not even real. Meanwhile, we have real issues, we have real problems where we can be putting this time into finding the true roots of our problems, of our issues in our communities, things that matter to us every day, things that's going to bring another George Floyd, things that's going to cause another Trayvon Martin, things that's going to cause another Emmett Till. But we don't want to get into it because to us, it's just too much time, too much effort, to go and read things that our mind are not naturally inclined to do. We have to force our mind. I have forced myself to do certain things that I don't even want to do. I could watch reality TV too, but I'd rather learn something that my mind is not naturally inclined to do that. For me to go find out about some Egyptian kings or something about Kemet so long ago, 3,000 years ago, my mind doesn't want to go there. But as I get further and further into it, I do find a thread that's more like me. And eventually that thread, as it grows, it perfects something in me that makes me become more alive. And that makes me want to know more about myself. And that's what I want to leave for my generations that's coming from. That's the legacy I want to leave behind, because a reality TV is for people who don't have problems, who's trying to come up with a problem. Actually, to me, it's their own stuff that they have created because of their selfishness and because of the karma, the debt that what they've committed, that they got to the point now, reality TV is all that they can come up with as entertainment. I don't want to be part of that. I need to give this sermon to a bigger audience. Yes, but how do I get a bigger audience? I know it's the hardest thing to find people to be interested in this type of subject matter. It's not sensational. It's not entertaining. It's more than entertaining, believe me, but entertainment in the sense they make us understand entertainment. And this is another part of the putting you to sleep. This is the numbing effect of this drug to put you to sleep. All of that, to use, worthless entertainment that puts your brains to sleep, literally, and puts your children to sleep. It's not friendly. No, it's not friendly. It's for woke people. Yes. And at the same time, I'm not interested I would like a bigger audience so more people will hear about this, but not necessarily for me to have more views or anything like that. Even if like the 9 people here listen to this, it's if they take it in, if they are interested, and that's why they stay and they are listening, that's more important to me than people who just looking for something to watch and then and then that's it. Yes, but as woke people, we have to do more. We have to do more because now we have to do more in terms of practice. We have to do practical things with our wokeness. It's not enough to be woke and to just be woke just for yourself, because this is a lot of work. This is big. And everybody should get involved. You have to play a part. You have to play a role. If you woke, if you know something, you have to educate others. You have to let others know. Because just remember yourself when you weren't woke, how you were. You had no idea this other world was going on. You didn't know. And I'm sure until either someone told you, or you read a book, or you saw a documentary on something, and something in you, a spark happened. Well, that's what needs to happen to other people. And it has to happen to people like you who get it. You have to spread it so other people can get it. But I was very dumbfounded with the letter of Willie Lynch. I was really dumbfounded. I didn't realize to what extent even me, in my thinking, the way I am, I didn't realize this was all set up for me to be the way I am. For me to think the way I think, for me to operate the way I operate, for me to see my people the way I see them, to the lens of how I saw them. I didn't realize this was all set up. And I just kind of just went in through it. But it was set up. I didn't know that. and it really disturbed me because it made me feel like a robot. And I'm talking about up to yesterday. I found parts of myself that were dormant, that I hadn't seen until I read the letter. I didn't realize, because when he talked about the illusions, I knew that we all get a little chip on our shoulder every now and then, and the little chip on our shoulder that they give us, it makes us feel a certain way, yes, and then we use that to feel bigger, and we use that against it. I knew that, but the fact that it was perpetuating and it was self-renewing, and some of it was so dormant, you couldn't see it. It's like carbon monoxide. It's there, but you don't smell it, but it's killing you slowly. I found a few crannies in me yesterday. I'm like, that's what that is. I didn't realize. And this morning, and I was meditating on that, that now I have to go work even harder, to go deeper into me, to question things, it's a lot of work. I'm in a different time zone. That's why I'm here so late. It's almost 12 o'clock. So I'm going to say good night. Thank you for coming. If you have not joined my page, if you're not following me, please follow me. My content is in 2 different languages. I'm from Haiti. I'm Haitian. So as you know, my country is a perfect example of this system. So my platform is to try to build information and share information for my own folks in my own native tongue, Creole. But I also have an English audience. I have a lot of English speaking people too. So that's why I do both. Although lately I've been doing more in my language, but I'm slowly gonna come back to making sure I have enough content for both audiences.